Okay, so repetition is another very important design principles. And if we go back to our design principles, and as you can see, repetition is not actually the main title, but I believe that repetition is a very important design principle, because everything else is kind of interconnected with repetition. Like perspective is a result of repetitive patterns arranged into the distance, rhythm, continuation, similarity, and stuff like that. So that's why I think repetition needs a separate explanation and separate chapter. So overall, if we do a repetitive pattern like this, it doesn't give you a good idea of what we are looking at. But once you start changing things, like once you start adding few things, that could be a fence, right? Like if you add something fancy over here, that could be your fence, right? And then you add something here. And then once you distort it, it will actually give you a very good sense of scale as well. Let's make another example, but go a little bit more complicated. Let's say you're doing like an architectural piece, and we will use repetition to kind of build up our scene. I'm using everything from previous chapter about contrast, so I'm building big shapes, small shapes, medium shapes, and stuff like that. Okay, and now once we do this as a repeating pattern, and distort it once again, it actually starts giving us a lot of information. The way it goes to distance, all you need is just to add a little bit, couple of human for scale, and then actually start extruding things. You know, instead of having them, let me just quickly do it. I don't really want to bother you with perspective rules and stuff like that, but we all know that these guys are going in. And look how quickly and how, with a really little effort, I was able to describe a quite complex scenery, you know? Just because I was using repetition, and it started all as an abstract flat surface, but then using these repeating patterns, and like even for humans, let's just get rid of this guy over here. Now I want to show you a very quick way and actually introduce a new tool which will help you to create repetitive patterns without spending a lot of time on technical part of the process. So let's just draw a simple human figure. Nothing fancy, just a representation of a human figure. Okay. Let's just, I think I can do a better job. Okay. So this is our default figure. And now there is this guy called mixer brush. Actually, it's over here. I have my N key assigned to it, so whenever I press B it goes to brush, I press N it goes to my mixer brush. And then you enlarge your brush size just so it covers your character or whatever you're trying to repeat. And then you press sampling, you press Alt, and you can see it's very tiny, but you can actually see that you are having that guy as a sample. And make sure you have a dry option with sample all layers off. And basically what it does, it's like creating a temporary brush, but now I can just by resizing my brush I can make a repetitive guy over here. So I can paint with that guy, and it gives me a lot of information. Same for example, you can actually block out the tree, right? And then you go to mixer brush and you sample it, and now you have a temporary repetitive pattern with the tree. That guy probably needs to be smaller. But just by repeating patterns or shapes, you can create a great sense of the scale, you know, and very quickly you can start generating a scenery. Let's do something like this. And then all you need to do So really quickly I was able to concentrate purely on the story, not on the technical aspect like repetition and stuff like that. Those trees are probably too big, but you got the point. Just by having those repetitive patterns, I was able to create the perspective and the focal point and stuff like that. So let's do another example and see how it works with something else. Like for example, let's create an astronaut. And then you can start creating a lot of like repetitive patterns that will help you to actually make it look like it's complicated. Let's sample this guy, for example. We want to create a zipper. You can use a brush spacing as well. Boom, done. Let's create another one. And then just by doing this really nice graphic elements, you can actually create a whole character. Oops. Without actually painting the guy, you know, you're creating an impression of something really complicated just because we are using repetitive pattern. Staying very graphic. Like, let's do another element. Yep, very straightforward. And Mixer Brush is the best tool. You can, like, for example, create brushes, right? You can, per each one of those design elements that I was using, you can start creating the brush. But the problem is, my problem with the creating brushes is that you can create a brush and then never use it again. That's why I think just creating a mixer brush will give you a temporary kind of solution, but it also gives you that freedom of being more creative than staying very technical. Because I know people, they have like bazillion amount of brushes, but they never actually using those because you created once for something and then you never use it again. That's why I think using Mixer Brush is a better choice. And overall, it helps you to stay more focused on the story design rather than technical aspects. So let's just do final tweaks. And then you can take this guy. Let's just move it over here. Go to Mixer Brush. Let's sample this guy. Once we sample this guy, look, boom, we can start creating a crowd of those guys, and then you knock them back. So, repetition, very important. Thank you. Okay, just as with contrasts, I want you to do some exercises for repetition as well. And to be honest, they will be fairly similar to what I showed in my demo. What I really want you to do is to design something really abstract, just following the design rules that I covered previously, like big shapes, medium shapes, small shapes. Something very abstract, something that you don't need your brain, and you don't need to think heavily. All you need to do is just to follow the big, medium, and small relation, and then you will be fine. Okay. And then use repetition, like let's say first we flipping. Right. And then we use my mixer brush to sample, to clone this object. And basically what we will end up having, we will have a bunch of those. If you hold shift, like you press and you hold shift, it will just create a set of those. And obviously by playing with an offset over here, you can create a different offset. And basically using this panel, you could start building something. And then you can copy. And then all you need to do is to create your story. Put a couple of characters. And that's it. And you can generate so many interesting and different stories by using this very simple technique, by repeating and offsetting and squashing and stretching your perspective lines. Like let's say, let's do something like this. And boom, you've got a completely different story. It could be some kind of base. Stay very simple, just two values, black and white. Generate a shape with a mixer brush, replicate it, make a repetition, distort your design, get a perspective, see some things, see some kind of story, and generate your frame. Like this could be the beginning of your story. Put a text over here. And boom, done. It could be a panel in your comic book. So repetition is a very powerful thing, and this is the very simple and effective exercise.